today's lesson, we're going to learn 9 simple yet very effective minor pentatonic licks. And these are all just little phrases, little ideas that come from the A minor pentatonic scale, which is a scale I'm going to be teaching you in a sec. And I use these all the time in my lead playing, and you'll hear them all the time in rock and blues songs. So yeah, feel free to use them in your own songs, and of course feel free to change them up, make them your own, and move them up and down the fretboard to change the key. So yeah, all very effective and useful stuff. I do want to remind you that it's that I've got more videos like this on my channel, so definitely subscribe to the channel, like the video, and why not let me know in the comments if there's anything else you'd like to see me teach. But anyway, let's get into the lesson. Let's start off by talking about the scale that all of these licks are based around. It's called the A minor pentatonic scale. We're going to start on fret 5 of the low E string, which is the A note. That's why it's called the A minor pentatonic, because A is the root note. Then we're going to go to 8 with your 4th finger on that low E string. So it's 5, 8. Then on the A string, we're going to go with your 1st finger on the 5 again. But then we're going to go to 7 with your 3rd finger. Okay, now the next couple of strings do the same thing. So on the D string, 5, 7, G string, 5, 7. But then on the B and high E strings, we're going to be going 5, 8, 5, 8 with your 1st and 4th fingers. So here's the entire scale all put together. And yeah, it's called the A minor pentatonic. So we know that if we're in the key of A minor, all of those notes, whatever order you play them in, are going to sound awesome. And again, all these licks, they all come from this scale. But you will notice there are some notes added in. They're called passing notes, basically, where, for instance, you might go from 5 on the A string to 6 to 7. A lot of people will know this as the blues note, and it can be found on the 8th fret of the G string as well, because it's between the notes of the scale. You don't stop on these, that's why they're called passing notes. But really, as you'll learn from some of these licks, you can put passing notes between any of the notes of the scale, as long as you don't stop on them. Okay, that kind of thing. But yeah, but just do know that all of these licks are based around the A minor pentatonic. Lick 1 is going to start off with your 3rd finger on the 7th fret of the D string. And then with your 1st and 3rd fingers, you're going to play 5 and 7 on the G string. So those first 3 notes. Notice that 7 is slightly longer than the rest. But once you've done those 3 notes, you're then going to do a bend on fret 7. And I do recommend always, when you bend, using 2 fingers on the string. You're going to use your 3rd finger on fret 7, but yeah, use your 2nd finger to help support it. And you're going to pick the string and bend upwards. But importantly, this is one of those string bends where you don't let the note come back down. So it's not an up and down bend. You bend up and then you touch the string. I recommend just touching the string with your right hand just to stop the vibrations and stop that note from coming back down. So so far we've got this. Okay, now once you've done that, you then play the 7 again. So you release the bend and you play the 7 of the G string, and then the 5 of the G, your 1st finger, and then the 7 of the D string, your 3rd. Okay, so that whole first bar is this. Okay, And then the second bar does something similar. It goes 5, 7 on G. But then we're going to bend again with those 2 fingers. It's another bend that just goes upwards, but this time instead of playing the 7, you're going to play the 5. Okay, so here's the second bar. So to put the whole lick together, it's going to sound like this. Lick 2 is going to start off with a 5 and 7 on the D string. Then you're going to play 5 on the G string, and then back to a 7 on the D string. So there's first 4 notes. But at this point, what we're actually going to do is we're going to flatten out your 3rd finger. So you're going to play slightly further up the finger, use more of the pad of the finger, you could call it, and play the 7 on the G string like that. And then you're going to use your 1st finger on fret 5 of the G, your 3rd finger, just the tip of your finger, on fret 7 of the D string, and then 5 on the D string. So the first bar is going to sound like this. Now, obviously, I do want to explain why I did that special technique, the roll. That is because it makes it sound a little smoother. Whenever you're going from the same fret, but to a different string, often if you use this roll technique, it makes it sound a bit smoother. Because if I don't use it, it doesn't sound terrible, but that 4th note had to be a little bit short, a little bit staccato, because I had to leap my finger up a string to get to that 7th fret of the G. But if I just roll my finger like this, it just sounds a lot smoother. So I'll do that one more time. Okay, but here's the important thing as well. We've got another instance of going from one string to another on the same fret. This time we're going from 5 on the D string to 5 on the A string. So we're going to do like the opposite almost. We're actually going to anticipate that roll by when you play that 5 at the end of bar 1, you're going to play further up the finger there. Because then after that, you can roll your finger down the other way and use the tip of your finger for that 5 at the start of bar 2. So here's what I mean. I'll play the whole lick up to there. So I'm playing further up the finger so I can roll down. Then that whole bar 2 is going to go 5, 6, 7. Got that blues note there, that passing note. 5, 6, 7 with your 1st, 2nd and 3rd fingers. Then you're going to skip up to the 5th fret of the G string. And then you're going to go down to the 7th fret of D to finish the lick. So here's bar 2. Right, and here's the whole lick put together one more time. Lick 3 is a really good example of how passing notes work, because we're going to start off on the bottom of the scale, 5, 8 with your 1st and 4th fingers. But then we're going to be going 5, 6, 7 on the next 3 strings. So it's going to be 5, 8, 5, 6, 7, 5, 6, 7, 5, 6, 7. So you notice how musically that really works because you're not stopping on those passing notes. If I were to, let's say I'm going up the lick, all sounding great. If I stay on that too long, it starts to sound really discordant. Okay, so again, you can play passing notes between any notes of any scale, just don't stop on them. Anyway, once you've done that, it then leaps up to the high E string, and you're going to go with your fourth finger on the 8th fret, and then your first finger on the 5th fret to resolve back to that root note. So here's the whole lick. And yeah, that's I really like that one because it shows you again, doesn't matter what way you go, that you can use those notes in between the notes of the scale and they can sound really effective. Lick 4 starts with a bend. It's another bend that just goes up, doesn't come back down. Then what we're going to do is bar your finger, your first finger, across the 5th fret of the B and high E strings and play those 2 notes. So the first 3 notes are going to be bend, 5, 5. Then you come back to the 5 on the B string. And then what we're going to do is we're going to do another bend, this time on fret 8 of the B string, and you're still going to use those 2 fingers. Like, never bend with your 4th finger, it just doesn't really work. So use those 2 fingers, 3rd and 2nd, and you're going to push upwards on the 8, and then you're going to come back to the 5 of the high E string. So that whole first bar is this. Okay, and then the second bar, I would use your 4th finger on fret 8 this time and go 8, 5 on the B string, and then you're going to go 8, 7, 5 on the G string, utilising that blues note again. So that second bar. So the whole lick. Lick 5 is going to include a lot more string bending on that 7th fret of the G string. So remember, always bend with those 2 fingers. You're bending up, and then you're playing the 5 on the B string. And it's a cool little trick here. I use this all the time because you're bending up essentially from a D note to an E note, and then you're playing an E note. There, you're playing the same note you just bent up to. That's why it's a really effective little thing. It's used in blues and rock, and all music's used all the time. So you're actually going to do that 3 times in a row. Once you've done that, you play 8 on the B string with your 4th finger, and then 5 on the B string with your 1st. So here's the whole of bar 1. Okay, and then bar 2, yet again, you're going to bend on the 7 on the G. You're going to play the 5 on the B. But then we're going to bend the 7 again. But this time coming back to it, a 7 on the G string. Then a 5 on the G. And then down to a 7 on the D. So that whole second bar. And then the whole lick again. Lick 6 is a good example of how you can use double stops. And when you're playing lead guitar and you play 2 notes at the same time, like this, that is called a double stop, basically. So as you can see on this one in the tab, you can see the 5s and the 7s stacked on top of each other. Whenever you see that, you're going to be barring your first finger on the 5s across the G and B strings, and your third finger barring across the 7th fret of the G and B strings. But the lick sounds like this. You're going to start on that 7th fret of the D string, and then you're going to bar that first finger on the 5s, and you're going to play that twice. And it does that twice in a row like this. And then it comes back to that D string again. So that whole first bar of this lick. And then lick 2, bar 2 is going to be barring that third finger across the 7th fret of the G and B strings, and you're going to go 7, 5, and then on the both of those strings, the double stops, then you're going to play 7, 5 on the D string, and then again you're going to do the same thing, 7, 5 with the double stops, and then ending on that 7th fret of the D string again. So bar 2, and then if I put the whole lick together, okay, and if you want to add a little bit of feel to this, you can do, when you play the 5s, something called a curl, where you pull downwards slightly on the strings. See, every time I'm going from those 5s down to a 7, I'm doing that little curl. So yeah, you'll notice people do that all the time on guitar, and it can sound really effective in this lick. I'll show you. But it sounds very effective either way. This next lick is going to use a lot of legato, which means hammering on and pulling off. So when we play the first 2 notes, the 5 and 7 of the A string, we're actually going to pick the first note, just playing with your first finger. But then with the 7, you're going to hammer your third finger down without picking again. That gives you that smooth legato sound. And we're actually going to do that on the A and the D strings like this. 5, 7, 5, 7. But then the next string does the same thing again. It does a hammer on from 5 to 7 on the G string. But then you're going to pull off your finger. And to do a pull off, it's like the opposite of a hammer on. I'm sure you've seen it before, where I don't pick the note, I just pull my finger downwards off the string to get that sound through. So it goes hammer on from 5 to 7 on the A, from 5 to 7 on the D, and then from 5 to 7 on the G. But we're also gonna do a pull off, and a lot of people call that a flick, okay, when you do the hammer on and pull off. And I'll show you how in a sec how you can speed this up and make it sound really fast. But anyway, so that whole first bar is this. And then it just resolves down to the 7th fret of the D string. So I'll play that whole first bar again. Every note the same length. But then on the next bar, we're going to play a 5 on the G string, basically for 2 beats. 1, 2, and then we're going to play the 7 back on the D string for 2 beats as well to finish off the lick. Right, so that whole second bar is 1, 2, 3, 4, basically. And then the whole lick together. I definitely recommend playing it at that slower pace when you're first getting used to it, but this is one where you can speed it up. It gives you that little flourish. It's really cool. So a lot of the time when you play this kind of thing, a lot of people think, oh wow, that must be some fast picking. It's not really, because you've got all that legato, you've got the hammering on, and then the hammer on and pull off. So within all of those notes I just played, I only picked 3 times. So feel free to speed this up, and then you can use that idea in your playing all the time, that flick. It's a really, really effective thing to do. Lick 8 also starts off on a couple of pull-offs, okay, so we've got more legato. We're gonna have your first finger on the 5th fret of the high E string, and your 4th finger on the 8th fret of the same string. So you're gonna pick that 8, you're gonna pull that 4th finger down, so you can hear 8, 5, again, just picking once though, putting downwards off of that string. And then you're gonna do the same on the B string. So those first 4 notes are going to be 8, 5, 8, 5, and then you're going to play 8 on the B string, and then 5 again on the high E string. So that whole first bar is simply okay, and then the next bar is actually going to start on fret 5 of the B string, and you're going to play 5, but then 8 on the G with your 4th finger, 7 on the G with your 3rd finger, 5 on the G with your 1st finger, and then again we're going to resolve down to that 7th fret of the D string. You'll notice a lot of these licks resolve on the 7th fret because it's the root note, it's the A note. But anyway, so that whole second bar uses that blues note again. So the whole lick. This last lick uses a technique that we haven't used yet in these licks, but it's an extremely popular and commonly used technique called a slide. We're going to start with your 3rd finger on fret 5 of the A string, but as soon as you play that note, you're going to slide your finger across the frets up to fret 7. You'll notice on tab when you've got the slide symbol, it's that little diagonal line, and often it won't tell you where to slide from. So in this case, I just recommend, and in most cases, going back 2 frets and sliding up from there. Okay, so we're going from fret 5 up to fret 7, and then we're going to play 5, 7 on the D string, and then 5, 7, 5 on the G string, down to 7 on the D string. So that whole first bar. Okay, but then what we've got is another slide. This time it's up to the 9th fret of the G string. So I go from 7 with my 3rd finger. I'm going to slide up there. And then I'm going to use my 2nd finger on fret 8 of the B string. Then I'm going to play 9 again of the G. But this time I'm sliding the other way from 9 down to 7. So it goes. Then I'm going to use my 1st finger to play 5 on the G, and then again resolving down to that 7 on the D string. So that whole second bar. And then to play the whole lick,